STN Digital's recent breakdown didn't just measure social media success. It exposed the WNBA's most pressing dilemma. According to their analysis, the Indiana Fever's online presence, fueled almost entirely by Caitlin Clark's influence, is now worth $55 million. That figure dwarfs every other team in the league, making the second-ranked Dallas Wings look like a rounding error at $8.6 million. This isn't about minor differences in engagement. This is a complete recalibration of how value is created in women's basketball. The data is conclusive. Clark's personal brand generates more attention than entire franchises, and the Fever's strategy to keep pushing Clark-focused content long after the season ended proves that star-driven engagement isn't seasonal. It's foundational. The report lands as a reality check for a league that has long aimed for balanced growth.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
It suggests that the most effective way forward isn't treating all teams equally, but leaning hard into the players who already command attention. Clark is not just a standout athlete. She's a marketing phenomenon whose reach outperforms championships. Even the reigning Las Vegas Aces trail behind in engagement despite their on-court dominance. This dynamic reframes how value is measured across the league and calls for a strategic overhaul. Prioritize individual stardom, reward impact with business leverage, and reshape league promotion around the few who can truly scale visibility. Caitlin Clark didn't just break records this season. She shattered the entire marketing model of the WNBA. According to a new report from STN Digital and Zoom Analytics, the Indiana Fever's social media value has skyrocketed to a mind-bending $55 million, thanks almost entirely to Clark's impact. Let that sink in. One player has generated more digital engagement and exposure than the rest of the league combined. That's not just impressive, it's a turning point. To understand how staggering this is, look at the numbers. The second-place team, the Dallas Wings, came in at just over $8.6 million. That's not even close. That's a $46 million gap between first and second. This isn't a story about steady league growth or balanced exposure. This is a data-driven wake-up call. Star power is everything. And Clark's influence doesn't stop when the final whistle blows. Even after the season ended, the Fever kept their foot on the gas, continuing to post about Clark, and fans kept engaging. That strategy alone turned off-season downtime into a constant stream of impressions, likes, and shares. The content never cooled, and the numbers never dipped. This kind of engagement isn't just about fandom. It's about real business value. That $55 million figure isn't some theoretical number. It reflects what it would cost a brand to get the same reach through traditional advertising. The Fever got it organically, just by knowing what their audience wants and delivering it consistently. And what their audience wants is more Caitlin Clark. Her social media presence generates billions of impressions and millions of interactions. She's not just popular, she's profitable. The report makes it clear. Clark is the engine behind the Fever's meteoric rise in digital valuation. Without her, the gap would collapse. With her, they're playing in an entirely different league. That's why this isn't just about one player. It's about what she represents. Clark is proof that individual star power has become the most valuable asset in women's sports. Not team success, not market size, not even championships. Personality, presence, and constant fan interaction are now the biggest drivers of growth. And that puts the entire WNBA in a complicated position. For years, the league has pushed a narrative of collective growth and parity across teams. But this report blows that narrative wide open. Growth isn't balanced. Attention isn't equally distributed. The difference between the top and the rest isn't marginal. It's massive. If the goal was to lift all boats evenly, the tide just proved it only rises for those with star power. That creates a very real challenge for the league. Keep pretending that growth is equal, or pivot hard into the new reality and lean into the stars. Because Clark isn't just outperforming other players. She's outperforming entire organizations. Teams with winning records, championship banners, and top-tier talent still can't come close to the digital value she's generating. That includes the Las Vegas Aces, reigning champs, stacked roster, yet they rank third in social media valuation, which proves, again, that trophies don't always translate into timelines. The report makes a key point. Emotional investment comes from individuals, not institutions. Fans connect with players. They follow stories. They rally around people, not just logos. The Fever understood that, and they built their entire digital presence around it. The result? A valuation that's over 6 times higher than the next best team. That strategy has real-world consequences. Because in today's media landscape, social value equals leverage. When a team can point to $55 million in organic media exposure, that's not just a brag, it's a bargaining chip. Sponsors take one look at that number, and they know exactly where to put their money. It changes the conversation completely. And it should change the league strategy too. Because this isn't a fluke. This isn't just a hot season. This is data confirming a long overdue truth. The WNBA's future depends on amplifying its biggest personalities. That's where the growth is. That's where the money is. That's what fans are responding to. The Fever didn't just go viral. They created a repeatable model for how the league can scale. Now, here's where things get even more interesting. The report makes it clear that content tied to Clark, even outside of live games, drove major value. That means she's not just useful when she's playing. She's a year-round asset. Her brand is so strong, it transcends the game itself. That kind of impact doesn't just benefit the Fever. It reshapes the entire business model. It proves that social media isn't an afterthought. It's a primary revenue driver. It affects sponsorships. It drives merchandise. It increases franchise valuation. And when it's powered by a single player, it raises serious questions about how that player is being compensated. Because let's be honest, if one athlete is delivering tens of millions in value, how can the league justify a pay structure that doesn't reflect that impact? The report doesn't just imply a need for salary reform, it outright demands it. High-impact players like Clark aren't just athletes. They're media empires. They deserve compensation that reflects the real-world business outcomes they're creating. That's not opinion. That's math. It also means the league needs to completely rethink how it markets itself. The data is saying, stop trying to make everything equal. Start building around your stars. Find the next breakout names. Promote them. Support them. Let them dominate the conversation. Because that's what grows the league. This isn't a knock on team play or competitive integrity. It's just a recognition of how attention works in 2025. People follow people. If you want to capture the market, you have to prioritize personality. And that's exactly what the Fever did. They built around Clark. They posted relentlessly. They didn't wait for the league to catch up. They made their own momentum. And it worked. The Fever's success story offers a blueprint. Not just for teams, but for the league itself. Want growth? Cultivate stars. Want engagement? Tell stories year-round. Want revenue? Show your value in data, not theory. Because this is where the WNBA has a choice. Cling to outdated ideas of equal exposure, or adapt to the proven reality of star-driven value. The numbers are no longer debatable. The fan behavior is consistent, and the engagement gap is too wide to ignore. Caitlin Clark has officially become the league's most powerful marketing tool. And the only question left is, will the WNBA build around her example? Or fall behind while trying to protect a narrative that no longer holds up? One thing's certain. The future of this league is being shaped by the people who bring the most eyeballs. And right now, that's not the champions. It's the ones who trend. If you're still watching, hit that like button if you're stunned by just how wide this digital divide really is. Share this with someone who still thinks team success is the only thing that matters. And drop a comment. Do you think the WNBA should restructure player compensation to reflect social value? Should the league stop pretending growth is balanced? And don't forget to subscribe, because the next data drop, the next viral moment, the next million-dollar metric, it's just one headline away. This isn't about hype anymore. This is about hard evidence. The kind of data that forces people to sit up and say, wait, what has happened? Because when the Indiana Fever clock in a social media valuation of $55 million, that's not a cute little stat. That's a seismic shift in how we measure value in women's sports. And Caitlin Clark is sitting dead center of that shift. Every impression, every click, every video clip of her pulling up from the logo isn't just a viral moment. It's a monetized asset. And we're not talking theoretical value. We're talking real dollars. The kind brands pay for. The kind leagues dream about. The kind that turns franchises into marketing machines. Let's not forget what we're comparing here. The Dallas Wings, the second-place team in social media value, pulled in $8.6 million. That's a decent number until you put next to the Fever. That $55 million isn't just first place. It's first place with rocket boosters. That's not a lead. That's a complete annihilation. And what's wild is the Fever didn't earn that through a dominant season. They weren't lifting a trophy. They were lifting a personality. A player so magnetic, she pulled the entire spotlight onto herself. And the team rode that wave into uncharted territory. Caitlin Clark made them relevant, and the Fever didn't waste a second capitalizing on it. Even after her season ended, they kept feeding the audience what they wanted. Clark clips, Clark highlights, Clark interviews. The timeline didn't go cold, it stayed on fire. That decision to keep posting was strategic, smart, and most importantly, effective. Because the attention didn't just linger. It grew. And that's what the report highlights so clearly. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a fluke. It was the result of a calculated content strategy rooted in fan behavior. The Fever looked at what fans were engaging with, and they doubled down. Not with generic team promos. Not with all players are equal messaging. With Clark-centric content. And it paid off. Big time. Because here's the thing. Fans aren't looking for balance. They're looking for connection. They want stories. Faces. Emotions. The kind of raw, charismatic presence that makes you stop scrolling. Clark brings that. That's why she's not just a player. She's a brand. And brands attract other brands. Which is where the economic impact starts to take shape. When your digital presence is valued at $55 million, you're not just winning social media. You're setting the price for partnerships. You're showing sponsors, hey, you want exposure? You want ROI? This is where the audience is. Suddenly, the Fever can walk into a room with that number in hand and own the conversation. That kind of value doesn't just make deals easier. It makes them bigger, more lucrative, more long-term. And it gives the Fever a level of financial leverage most teams in the league have never even sniffed. But here's the twist. It's not just the Fever who should be paying attention. The entire league needs to look at these numbers and reassess what they think drives growth. Because for years, the WNBA has held tightly to this idea of egalitarian promotion. Push every team. Push every player. Give everyone equal exposure. And on paper, that sounds fair, noble even, but it's just not working. The data shows it. The disparity is too big to ignore. The reality is simple. Fans don't engage equally. They gravitate toward the stars, toward the standout personalities, toward the moments that feel bigger than the game. And right now, Caitlin Clark is that moment. So the question becomes, what does the WNBA do with this? Because sticking with the old model means letting momentum die. Trying to force parity in a landscape that clearly rewards individuality is a losing battle. The league has to evolve, embrace what works, build around it, use players like Clark not just as athletes, but as ambassadors for the league's brand. That doesn't mean abandoning team identity. It means understanding that star-centric marketing isn't optional anymore. It's essential. It's the strategy that brings in new fans, the strategy that sells out arenas. The strategy that earns $55 million in free exposure. And if other teams want in on that, they need to start thinking like the Fever. Find the faces that can carry your brand. Build content around them. Post consistently. Keep the conversation alive. Don't wait for the league to spotlight you. Make yourself impossible to ignore. Because if you're waiting for equal exposure, you're waiting forever. The algorithm doesn't care about fairness. It cares about engagement. And engagement is currency. And this leads to the other unavoidable reality, player compensation. Clark's impact isn't just valuable to the Fever, it's valuable to the league. Her content lifts the WNBA's visibility across platforms. She's driving new fans, new conversations, new money. And yet, her salary? Capped. Like every other rookie. That disconnect is becoming impossible to justify. This report gives players data-backed leverage. No more vague arguments about value or intangibles. The value is clear, quantifiable, public, and players who generate that kind of value deserve to be compensated accordingly. That doesn't mean throwing out the salary cap tomorrow, but it does mean opening the door to performance-based bonuses, digital revenue sharing, or marketing-specific compensation. Because if one player is worth tens of millions in media exposure, the paycheck needs to reflect some of that impact. And let's be clear, Clark isn't the only player capable of this. She's just the first to benefit from a system that fully leaned into her marketability. Other teams, other stars, can replicate this, but only if the league stops treating social media like a side project and starts treating it like a primary revenue channel. That's what this report reveals more than anything. The old playbook is outdated. Wins and losses are no longer the sole measure of success. The scoreboard matters, but so does the timeline. So do impressions, shares, follower growth. These are now core KPIs in evaluating a franchise's value. And in that world, Clark is dominating. Not because she tried to be a star, but because the system finally rewarded someone who already was. If the WNBA is serious about long-term growth, they'll take this report as a blueprint. Prioritize players with crossover appeal. Give them the tools to build their personal brands. Encourage teams to keep posting, even when the games stop. And most importantly, let go of the idea that everyone needs to be equally famous. Because equal effort does not always equal equal impact. The numbers prove it. So here we are. Caitlin Clark has effectively rewritten the business case for women's basketball. Not with a buzzer beater, not with a ring, but with sustained digital attention that's worth more than any championship bonus. And the Fever? They understood the assignment. Here's what everyone needs to understand. This isn't going away. The Caitlin Clark effect isn't a one-time surge. It's not a fluke. It's not some novelty from a rookie season. This is the new normal. And if the WNBA doesn't start operating like it, they're going to get left behind by their own momentum. Let's keep it real. A $55 million social media valuation didn't fall out of the sky. It came from consistent, intentional, star-focused execution. It came from understanding what today's sports economy actually runs on: attention. And attention, right now, is centered on Caitlin Clark like a spotlight in a dark room. You can have the best record. You can have the most stacked team. But if you're not commanding that kind of engagement, you're not even in the same conversation. The Las Vegas Aces, despite being reigning champs, are a perfect case study. Third place in social media value. A winning pedigree, a flashy roster, but still nowhere near what the Fever pulled off with one breakout name and a relentless media push. And that gap, it's not closing unless something changes. Because attention doesn't automatically redistribute itself. It follows gravity, and Caitlin Clark's brand is the black hole pulling everything in. If the league wants to grow, they have two choices. Keep pretending that exposure should be shared equally, or follow the heat. Invest in what's working. Replicate the formula. Because the fans have made it crystal clear, they're not watching for parity. They're watching for the people they care about. And right now, that's Clark. And here's where things really get uncomfortable. That $55 million number didn't come from polished ad campaigns or high-budget productions. It came from organic content, from in-game moments, post-game interviews, personality-driven posts, the kind of stuff you can't manufacture, but you can absolutely amplify if you know what you're doing. The Indiana Fever knew what they were doing. They didn't overthink it. They didn't try to dilute Clark's presence with balanced coverage of the whole roster. They put her front and center, and the fans responded with billions of impressions. It's not complicated. People want more of what they already care about, and the Fever fed that demand with precision. Meanwhile, most of the league is still running their social like it's 2012. Sporadic posting, generic graphics, zero narrative. zero emotional hook, and then they wonder why they're not seeing returns. The data's out now. There's no excuse to ignore it. Every team in the league should be rethinking their entire digital strategy today. What's your plan to keep fans engaged in the offseason? Who's your most marketable player? And what are you doing to build their brand? If your answer is wait for media day, you've already lost. This isn't just a marketing issue. It's a league infrastructure issue. Because the longer they cling to the old model of equal exposure and slow burn storytelling, the more they're going to fall behind. And let's talk about sponsorship. Because this report wasn't just written for fans, it was written for brands. The kind of brands who are looking at these numbers and making real decisions about where to put their dollars. And guess what? They're not interested in league-wide averages. They want impact. They want audience. They want ROI. And that means they want Caitlin Clark or someone like her. Which means the Fever are now walking into meetings with a trump card no one else in the league can match. And that puts pressure on everyone, from other teams to the league office, to catch up or fall behind. And no, this isn't bad for the league. This is exactly what the WNBA needs. Because whether you like it or not, the league has spent years fighting for visibility. Now they finally have it. Concentrated, yes, but powerful. And they can either use that to lift the entire ecosystem or squander it trying to keep things fair. Let's be blunt. Fairness doesn't drive engagement. Star power does. And this isn't just about Caitlin Clark anymore. It's about the players coming up behind her. The next college star. The next rookie phenom. The next charismatic, camera-ready athlete who can move culture and drive clicks. The league should be planning right now how to develop and promote those players. Because they've seen what happens when the stars align. They can't afford to wait for another perfect storm. They need to create it. The other elephant in the room? Player pay. This report exposes a massive disconnect between what certain players generate and what they earn. If someone is bringing $55 million in digital value to a franchise, a capped rookie salary doesn't even come close to reflecting that impact. And while nobody's saying throw the salary structure out overnight, the league has to start building new compensation models. Incentives, marketing bonuses, endorsement support, something, anything that acknowledges the economic reality on the table. Because if players start realizing they can generate more value than they'll ever see in their paycheck, and the league doesn't adjust, that's a retention problem. That's a loyalty problem. That's a growth problem. And fans are watching. They're smarter now. They understand business. They follow the numbers. And they're not going to stay quiet when the most valuable players in the league aren't being compensated accordingly. This is where leagues either evolve or lose their stars to bigger paychecks elsewhere. So let's wrap it all up. One player, one season, one clear message: star power is king. Caitlin Clark didn't just dominate the stat sheet. She dominated the league's value sheet. The Fever didn't just have a good year. They redefined what success looks like off the court. In the WNBA, they've been handed a roadmap to the future. Prioritize your stars. Amplify your personalities. Build content around emotional connection. And most importantly, stop pretending attention is evenly distributed. The data's here. The numbers don't lie. The fans have voted with their likes, their shares, their comments, and their wallets. It's time for the league to move with intention or risk falling behind the very movement it helped create. If you're still here, hit that like button if you're fired up about what this report means for the future of the WNBA. Share this with someone who still thinks team records are the only thing that matter. Drop a comment. Should players be paid based on the value they create off the court? And definitely subscribe, because trust me, this isn't the last time we're going to be talking about the business of influence.